the workflow. Okay, let me know if you can see my screen. So SC18 is the T code to go to the BADI implementations. Okay, so for the rules and validation, business rules and validations, we have the BADI enhancement spot, that is USMD underscore rule underscore service. Okay, so why we do the BADI implementations is, so these these enhancement spot and these BADIs are BADI definitions are given by SAP. Okay, so in NWBC screen, we see all the UABB screens, right? So in that we'll be having different attributes. Okay, so in that attributes we can do for all those attributes we can do the validations and derivations. Like validations and derivations are nothing but if you want to auto populate any values, like if you want to default any values, or if you want to derive any uh, attribute value based on other attribute value, like let me open one mm03. Now NWBC is like I'm not able to access the NWBC screen, so that's why I'll just show you through in mm03. Okay, so let me open this material. So I'll select all the views, and in this let me open the plan. So this plant we have. Okay. So here we can see material number, material description, and the base unit of measure, material group, and all these fields are available, right? So like this only we'll be having the UADBs in the NWBC screen as well. Okay. So in the NWBC screen, we'll be having different UABBs for different views there. So each UABB will have different attributes. Okay. So in that attributes, if we want to default any values, like here, if you can see base unit of measure, one field, one attribute is there. So if we want to make this attribute defaulted to each, then we can write the default values in the BADI implementation. So, and if we want to derive any attribute value based on other attribute value, let's say here here we have base unit of measure. So if we want to derive the unit of weight based on the base unit of measure, then we can write that logic in the BADI implementations. Okay. So SAP has provided enhancement spot, that is USMD underscore rule service. So whenever you open the NWBC screen, this enhancement spot will trigger in the background. Okay. So this enhancement spot has two BADI definitions. Okay. So first let me explain you what is a BADI and what is enhancement spot. Okay. So enhancement spot is nothing but it's like SAP has standard applications, right? Like standard objects and standard transactions we'll be having. So in that, if we want to make any changes, like in the earlier versions, we used to have like we need to change the standard one, and if we want to make any changes to the standard functionality, then SAP used to ask for the access key. Like if you want to object key or access key, so we have to raise a request to SAP saying we need this like we need this custom logic in our standard application. So like that we have to request the access key to the SAP, and then SAP used to provide that access key. But later on, what SAP did is, like in the standard functionality also, many of the users, like many of the clients, wants to add some their own custom functionality. So to adapt those custom functionalities, SAP has provided enhancement spots. Okay, so if you want to modify or adjust or add your custom functionality to any standard application, then you need to check for the SAP provided enhancement spots. Like enhancement is nothing but in like simple way, enhancement is nothing but you are enhancing some functionality. So SAP has provided standard enhancement spots like that for rules and derivations. It given USMD rule service enhancement spot. So one enhancement spot can have multiple body definitions. Okay. So one body definition, and in that one body definition can have multiple implementations. Okay. So here if you see the T code to open the baddies is SE18. Okay. So if you go to the SE18 T code, here we have to give the enhancement spot. So USMD underscore rule underscore service is the enhancement spot which will trigger when you open an NWBC screen to re- to submit and change request. Okay. So before submitting, till like till the submission process of the change request, from creation to till submission of the process, this USMD underscore rule service enhancement spot will trigger in the background. Okay. So in this enhancement spot, we have two body definitions. Okay. One is USMD rule service body and other one is USMD rule service cross entity body. So what's the difference between these two? Okay, first let me just open an Excel and explain the enhancement spot and body definition and what is body implementation. Okay, so let's say SAP standard application is there. Okay, so if you want to, like SAP has provided some enhancement spots for doing custom changes to the standard functionality. Okay. So this is nothing but enhancement spot. So one enhancement spot can have multiple body definitions. Okay. One body definition will have one interface. So interface is the main object which connects between the applications. Okay. So it will have the body will have one body definition and one interface, and it can have multiple body implementations. Okay. It can have multiple body implementations, and the body will have filters also. It will have filters also. So like if you want to trigger this body, like whatever the body you are implementing, if you want to trigger that body, that logic only for data model, then you can use that in the filters. Okay. So let me just show you here. So this is the USMD rule service is the enhancement spot for validations and derivations. If you see, this body definition is for USMD rule service. Body definition is for define validations or derivations. This is for single entity validations. Like In NWBC, we'll be having multiple entities, right? Like in each data model, you will be having multiple entities. So if you want to do validations in single entity, then we have to use USMD underscore rule service baddie. That means we have to implement one baddie in the USMD underscore rule service. Then, if you want to derive or validate any attribute which is in the other entity. So if you want to do validations between entities, then we have to use USMD rule service cross entity. So that means we can do validations on multiple entities using this cross entity baddie. Okay. So here each baddie will have one baddie definition. Okay. Then interface, only one interface it will have. And in this interface, it will have multiple methods. It can have one single method or multiple methods. Anything. Okay. And a baddie will have filter conditions. So the filter condition for USMD rule service is entity type or model. Like we can put based on the model or entity type, we can put the filters. Okay. Next, implementations. So these implementations here, SAP has provided some standard implementations already. And if you want to do any implementations, you can do just right click on this baddie which you want to implement. So create. Why we are implementing this is nothing but just we want to add some code that has to trigger in the NWBC. So this is the place, this is the object or this is the enhancement which triggers in the NWBC screen. Okay. So that's why we have to implement this baddie only. So what we have to do is just right click on the baddie which you want to implement, create baddie implementation. Okay. So it will show all the already available or created implementations. Okay. We can use the already created one or we can create new one. I'm just selecting create new implementation here. Okay. Enhancement implementation name. So we can put any enhancement implementation name. So for now, I'm giving MDG underscore test underscore MM. Okay. Short text. Baddie implementation for MM. Okay. Next, I'm just clicking on the continue button. Okay. So here it is asking for the package. So I'll just give anything ZMDG we have. Let me check. Yeah. So for now, I'll just save it in the temporary. Okay. EMP. Or else we can directly click on the local object. Okay. So this is our enhancement implementation. So I'm just clicking on it. Now it is asking for the baddie implementation name. Okay. So the first step is to create the enhancement implementation name with short text and then baddie implementation name. So I am giving Z MDG implementation test MM. Okay. MM data model class. So like the class, using the class only we can write the logic. Okay. So we have to give one class. So if you already have one Z class, then you can give the Z class. Otherwise, you can give the new one also. ZCL MDG test MM. I'm just giving it. Okay. So click on continue. Now again it is asking for the package for class. Okay. So again I am giving local object. Now it has created one class and one baddie implementation here. Okay. So here you can see one baddie implementation it opened. Now I'll just go to the implementing class. So here if you can see, before going to the class, here if you can see, the body implementation is ZMDG I test MM, and it is here now it is showing implementation will not be called. So if we activate this in body, then it will be called in the background. Okay. Now here the body definition name. For which body definition we have created the implementation, that is USMD rule service. Okay. And the interface, that is IF EX USMD rule service. So this interface will be used here. Okay. So now I am just going to save this syntax check and activate. Okay, so parallelly, there are different enhancement implementations available. So that's why it is not allowing to save it. Okay. Let me open this one. Okay. So here, if we see, these are the methods available here. Okay. So if we want to do any checks on the entities, then like validations, then we can use this check entity method. So here in this check entity method, we can write the logic. Okay. So like validations, like if the user is submitting the change request without any base unit of measure or like that, then if you want to populate any messages like do any validations, then you can write the logic here. Okay. So each method will have signature. So here if you see check entity signature is nothing but the import export parameters. Okay. So here these are the importing parameters and this is the exporting parameter. Okay. So if you want to populate any messages to the NWBC screen, then you can write it in the like you can write the logic here and you can send the messages to ET message. Then this ET message will populate the messages in the NWBC screen. Okay. So all these importing parameters we have. So the information will come through this interface and it will be imported with these parameters. Okay, the change request number, entity type, and all these information we can get. Like each method will have different signature. Okay, so here using the filter values, we can put the filter values. So here we can give the entity type or the model, and like multiple entity types also we can give, multiple data models also we can give here. Okay. So this is for rule service single entity. So this interface has multiple methods, that check entity, check entity hierarchy, and c request start, c request hierarchy, final, addition, derive entity. So if you want to do any derivations, you have to write it in the derive entity. Okay. So other T code also we have for these single entity validations, that is USMD underscore rule. Okay. So using the USMD underscore rule transaction, that is a BRF application. So there also we can write the validations and derivations for single entity. Okay. So next let's see for cross entity. For cross entity we have only one method in the interface. Okay. So let me open the interface. So this is the interface, that is rule service 2 and derive. So derive is the method we have in cross entity. So only one method we have. Okay. So I'll just open one implementation. So this rule service, this is SAP provided one. So this one has implementing class. This implementing class we have CLRS cross entity. So in this derive method is there. So in this derive method we have the signature parameters as IO model, IO change data, IO write data, and ET message info. Okay. So here the IO model is nothing but the data model. Okay. Uh, like it will have the information about the data model. And the IO changed data is the runtime data. In the NWBC screen, while creating the change request, whatever the data is there, if you want to read the data and do validations, then you can use this IO changed data. Okay. Next is IO write data. So here we can use the IO write data to uh, write any information or any values to the change request. Okay. So here we can see. Yeah. So here we can see exporting IO model. So here we can write our own logic. Like if we want to do like validations, then we have to first get the information from the change request using the IO change data. So there are multiple, like we have SAP provided classes to read all this information. Like we have governance API class, and model external interface. Like that we have different interfaces and different standard classes provided by SAP, so we can use that wherever it is needed. Okay. So any questions in this?
No, Sam.
No. So this rule service cross entity body has filters, that is only model. Okay. So we can just put the filter values only for model. But for the single uh, body definition, we can put the filter values based on entity type and the model. Both we can put. Okay. Okay. So now this enhancement spot is for the rules and validations or derivations for the change request. So this enhancement spot will trigger mm, till during the process of change request creation. Okay. So mm, till the submission of the change request, this enhancement will trigger in the background. Okay. So once you submit the change request, then the workflow process will start, right? So during that workflow process, USMD underscore SSW underscore, sorry, USMD underscore SSW underscore service processor. This enhancement spot will be used for the workflow process. So once you submit the um, change request, this enhancement spot will trigger in the background, and it will be triggered throughout the workflow process. Okay. So it will be used throughout the workflow process completion. So here, if I go to this enhancement spot, we have 5 baddies here. Okay. So for workflow, how many baddies we have? 5 baddies we have. Okay. One is check agent table. Other one is dynamic agent select. Next is para result handler. So this is for parallel workflow. We have discussed about sequential workflow and parallel workflow, right? So if you want to make your workflow process as parallel workflow, then you have to write the logic here in this body. Okay. Next we have rule context prepare. So if you want to enhance any rules in the rule based workflow, like you want to add any new rules, new custom rules, then you can use this rule context prepare. Next, you, system method caller body we have. So other than all this, so check agent table will trigger every time. Like every time check agent table will trigger. Like throughout the process of the workflow, check agent table body will trigger. Okay. So when this dynamic agent select will trigger is like in the rule based workflow in the single value decision table, like in the previous classes we have discussed, right? So in that single value decision table, we will be having one column that is dynamic agent service, right? So if in your workflow, if at any of the workflow step, if you maintain the dynamic agent service, then this baddie will trigger in the background. So, like if you want to determine the agents based on some conditions, then what you have to do is then you have to put one dynamic agent service there, dynamic service there in the single value decision table. Then you have to write the logic here. Like if you want based on material group, like if material group is 1, then if you want to send the change request to first group, then you can put the logic here. And for the material group 2, if you want to send it to other person or other team, then you can write the logic here in the dynamic agent select band. Okay. Next, para result handler. So para result handler is for the parallel workflow handling. Okay. So if like in the single value decision table, if you put the like and there also in the single value decision table, we will be having a column to make the workflow step as parallel workflow. So if you put that baddie there, baddie condition there, then it will trigger this para result handler. So here you can write the code. Like if you want to wait until all the parallel workflow users approves the change request, or if you want to move to next step, if only one of the person also approves, and if you want to um, reject the change request if any of the user rejects the change request, all those logic you can write here in the para result handler. Okay. So that is nothing but you have to create one new baddie implementation for this baddie, like how we did before. So create baddie implementation, and you have to assign one class, implementing class for that one, and use in that method you can write the logic. Okay. So same like that for rule context prepare also we have one baddie. So you can if you want to add any other rules in the single value decision table, then you can write it here. Okay. And next is system method caller. So if you want it like mostly system method caller will use for the validations, like in any of the step, if you want to put any validations, or mostly we will use this for the email notifications or creation of follow on CRs. I mean based on the CR, if you want to create one more CR, like one more change request for this change request, then we can write the logic here to create the follow on CR. Okay. So like that, if any additional changes other than these available like dynamic agent, check agent, para handler, Other than this, if you want to do any validations or anything in your workflow, then you have to use this system method caller. Okay. So like let's say if you want to uh, do the replication using RFC or anything, like RFC, if you want to do the replication, then you can write it here. Like once the system method caller is triggered, like once the final step is approved, then you can put one service name there in the non-user agent, and using that service name you can write the logic here. Okay. So these are the different baddie definitions we have for workflow process. Okay. So check agent table will trigger throughout the process of the workflow, and system method caller will trigger whenever you put the service name in your step. So if you are in the step 20, and in that step you have, if you have the service name defined there in the non-user agent, then this system method caller will trigger in the background. And if you are at step number 10, and you have defined the dynamic agent service name there in the single value decision table, then this dynamic agent select value will trigger. Okay. So like that, we can use these baddie definitions based on our requirement. Okay. Any questions here? So each baddie will have interface, filter, and the implementations, multiple implementations it can have. Okay. So, any queries?
No, Sadhana.
Okay. So, yeah, so I am done for today. If you have any questions, you can ask. Otherwise, we can close the session.
Sadhana.